Hello and welcome to SLP Full Disclosure. I am your host, Jennifer Martin, and joining me is my longtime producer, Jonathan Carey.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, it has been a very long time.
Too long in both of our opinions.
So this is the last ever episode.
So that's
episode
it.
50.
Are you breaking up with me or am I breaking up with you?
Yeah, normally I would say it's not you, it's me, but this time it's really you, not me.
Okay, we're not breaking up. Don't worry. Don't worry. We're still here. We're just teasing.
Yeah, but today is a very special 50th episode. It's very surprising we made it this far, especially with you at the helm. So
I'm telling you, there was some times where I wasn't sure we were going to get through, but we did. So I know, I can't believe it. 50, it's crazy. I was trying to think, what year did this start? Because I feel like 2020 is a blur. Like, I don't remember a lot of that year.
I think it's just when, we look back in 20 years, we'll say, this podcast began pre-COVID and we continued post-COVID, or hopefully post-COVID. So.
Yeah. So PC, no, we'll have to say it's almost like a BC again, because you can't say PC and PC.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, post-COVID. So it's BC, before COVID, AC, after COVID.
Yeah. I can get down with that.
Okay. Let it be known.
Yeah. I'll get in touch with my friends at the United Nations and we can get this
Put it on the
decided.
docket. Please do. Yeah. But what was it? Because it was 2018?
No.
Or 19?
19.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seems so long ago.
I know. The summer of 2019.
Yeah.
Magical time.
So carefree. Didn't know what was coming. Yeah. We used to be in person doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. We started in person at our little office studio, which was much easier back then because then I could, in person, figure out all your tech problems instead of trying to do it remotely.
Listen, nobody's more sad about you not being there to fix my tech problems than me. All right? Nobody.
Yeah. But hey, it let me grow in my patience, I feel like I'm a more patient person now.
Yeah, I'm helping you. If you ever have children, you're already one step ahead because I've just basically been like a grown child for.
It's a nice way of putting it. So.
I said it so you didn't have to, but yeah. I was doing you a service is what I look at it as. So yeah, now our poor little office is probably growing mushrooms.
What did you put in there before you left?
It was going to be a surprise when you got back.
It was going to be a whole garden.
Just mean it's been sitting there vacant. So
prehistoric times.
Yeah.
It'll look like.
Yes, exactly. Some ferns are growing, some mushrooms. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get back there one day. But for now, we are remote. And so, but today is a very special episode. Obviously, it's episode 50. And so we decided to change things up a little bit and do a Q&A. And so I will be the host this time and you'll be the guest.
All right.
I was thinking about like how we would do this. And I was like, maybe we should do it like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire style. But then I was like, you'd probably use all your lifelines in the first 3 questions. And I wouldn't really know who would be bankrolling this thing. So I decided we'll just do a normal Q&A.
Sounds like a plan.
But, all right. So to kick things off, what inspired you to become an SLP in the first place?
Oh, my gosh. And just so our listeners know, I don't know these questions beforehand. I don't want to know any of them beforehand. Just tell me.
I'm giving you a softball to start with.
You are. I'm ready.
Nitty gritty.
Okay. So it was interesting because I have my brother was in special education growing up, and so he received services from a speech pathologist. My mom was a special education teacher and then moved to be a special education director. And so I kind of was familiar with this job. And I also remember that everybody wanted to go with our speech therapist in our school. So when she showed up to grab kids, it was like, take me with you, take me. So I always felt like, what's happening out there? I just always kind of, and she was just this very kind of graceful woman, so kind to everybody. So I always felt like I had a really good impression of a speech therapist, and knew of them from my mom and from my brother. And then the clincher is that Mrs. Underwood, my teacher in high school, I was leaving class one day and she stopped me and she said, "Hey, have you ever given any thought to what you're going to do when you go to college?" And I was like, "Not really. I mean, I'd kind of thrown around some different ideas, but she said, "I think you would be really great as a speech pathologist." And so I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, I'll look into it." She said, "I really think you should look into it." And I did. And I just started kind of looking into what the job entailed and where I could work and what I could do. And then again, I because my mom had connections. I mean, not to humble brag, within the special education community, I went and hung out for a part of a day with the speech therapist that was working at one of her schools. And I just really liked it. And so I kind of started and thought, well, we'll see what happens. I had heard everybody changes majors like 3 to 5 times. And so I was kind of expecting like, oh, this will be the first one. And then just never stopped being interested in it. So here I am.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's really cool. Yeah, I was also one of those kids that was excited to go to speech instead of being in class. So. But I had it even better because we didn't have any on site. And so I got to get out of school early and then drive to go see someone. So
really, so it was not somebody through the school district.
Yeah, because they didn't have anyone in that district. And so, but yeah, so I was a, special kid. So.
You're still special, Jonathan, but for all the right reasons.
Yeah, just get out of school a little early, and all the kids are jealous. So,
yeah, that would be awesome. So, I guess you didn't have that impression of them coming to pick up the kids that got to go.
No, it was. But I felt like I had like kind of the opposite of just, the kids would look at me and be like, "Where is he going to go? Why do I have to stay here?" Yeah.
What do I have to do to get a jail-free card?
Yeah. It's like read poorly. And then that may be a start. So,
well, I mean, and nothing will make you feel more like a superstar than if you are the SLP at an elementary school, because if you do go to pick up kids, I mean, it's like, "Oh, take me," and of course now I realize it's because they all just wanted to get a class. But, yes. But at the time it was like, calm down.
I know I'm great, but
I know. Yeah. It was a very, I'm sure it's kind of what the Beatles felt like.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
So similar. So yeah.
All right. So next question we have that we got is, do you feel like at this point in your career that you no longer have imposter syndrome?
Oh, gosh. And that's such a good question, because I feel like that is something, and I don't know. Okay. Did you feel like you had imposter syndrome when you got out of school? And I guess I should say first, do you even know what that is, Jonathan?
Please. No, it's a very common thing also in the creative world. And so feeling like that. But to answer your question, not really after getting out of college, because I was already running a business in college. And so, but I feel like anytime you would step up and your clientele that you'd be working with, you'd be like, do we really belong here? So like going to like big time meetings where you gotta look all fancy and stuff, and you're like, what am I doing? So
if they only knew what was underneath this suit,
I know.
Like all the nerves and yeah. Cause I always wondered that, because I feel like, I didn't have a name for it at the time, but I did definitely feel it and feel like, and really, because I started in medical. And so I think it's really rampant there, because everybody's trying to seem like, oh, I've got all the answers and I know it. And I feel like in my experience, it was harder in that setting to say, I don't know, but let me get back to you. Because I felt like your patients and other professionals wanted to know the answers right then, right there. And you're the expert. And if you don't know it, then what are you doing here? And so I felt that for sure in the beginning of my career. And I wish that I had had a name for it and understood that most people felt that way in some capacity and what it really meant. And so that's what I always try to explain to new grads and whatnot now is like, it's totally normal. You're going to feel that way. But it's almost like I wish that somebody had told me, just own it and say, I don't know the answer to this and I'm going to find out, because I feel like, looking back, what I know now, that there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, oftentimes people are going to have more respect for you if you do that than if you're like, well, let's just try this. And I know what I'm doing, but I really don't. And so, but I do feel like now, when I'm working with the population, I still see some babies coming out of the NICU, and I definitely have a very good sense about what I know and what I don't know. But what I do know, I feel really strong about because I've just done it over and over and over. And it's also, I have to remind myself that there was a point where I didn't know it and now I do know it. So then it kind of erases that imposter syndrome. But I've also learned too, I don't feel like there's any shame or negative feelings if I'm like, you know what, I don't know the answer, or I'm not an expert in that. Let me find out somebody who is, because I think, again, I really wish that I would have known that. And then in my position now, just too, within the company I work with, there's times where I feel like, oh, I don't know if that's right or not. But again, I've just learned to like own it and be like, I don't know if this is right or not, but we're going to try it and see. And, I come up with all kinds of kooky ideas, Jonathan. And so.
Oh, I know firsthand about that. So.
But I'm good at saying like, okay, this may be a garbage idea, but I'm just going to say it. And I feel like.
Getting the message, I have an idea is always makes my palms sweat,
No, this is what it is. I was thinking.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're like, oh, what's next? So I was thinking, I just read this meme that was like a significant other was like, when I hear that, I think, what do I have to fix, or where are we moving? So I was thinking, what is it?
Yeah. And on the same, or I guess on the other side of the coin, what about, do you feel like you still have imposter syndrome being a host of a podcast? But actually, before you answer that, for people that don't know, Jennifer is the person that invented the podcast in the first place. So.
Okay, I got to explain this because I feel really strongly about this statement. And I don't know if I was the only one that invented the podcast, but I felt like I had the concept as a child. So when I was a kid, and this of course is going to, age me, but so instead of video games and electronics and iPads and those sorts of fun things, we had something called a tape recorder. Hours of fun. And so my friends and I in elementary school would host almost like a radio show of sorts is the only way that I can think to explain. And I remember I had my little microphone that plugged in, and we'd hit record and do a show and have different like segments and bits and whatnot. And so I got to find these because I have to find them, but I also have to find a tape recorder that I can play them on.
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if I have that anymore. But yes, so I kind of feel like, I started a podcast in my youth. But as far as imposter syndrome with this, I feel like in some ways, because I love to talk to people and I could talk to people forever. And so that's something, and I love learning about people. Like I feel like people all the time into conversation, they say, but I didn't ask anything about you. I'm like, I know, but that's fine with me because I love learning about people, making connections. And so I feel like that part's really easy. I think the part that is still a little bit challenging for me is that if I know there's certain things that we really want to cover because I know I want to know them and I know our listeners will want to know them. So I'm trying to kind of stay on topic there. But, if I was in a conversation, and I knew I had all the time in the world, then I would like, oh, I want to veer off there. I want to veer up. So it's hard for me to stay the course. So I would say sometimes, okay, I'm going to not compare myself, but okay. Oprah, for example, I'm not Oprah. I'm nowhere near her.
You're saying you're Oprah.
No, I'm not. I'm saying,
okay.
I would like to come back in my next life as Oprah, but I was just listening. They have her, Oprah Winfrey show as a podcast now where they have different episodes. And when I'm listening to her and, she's just was born to do what she's doing. And it's interesting because I do feel like I have a little bit of imposter syndrome when I listen to her. Of course, we're in two different, as we all should, but I do think like, oh, well, I want to have more of those skills. And she does a great job of keeping it on track, but also making it seem like she's just having a conversation. So long story longer, sometimes yes, but it's getting better because I'm realizing, I haven't done the original OG podcast since I was in elementary school. So I had it, there was a break.
Yeah. Yeah. But hey, now you're 50 episodes in. So you should be a pro,
I should be.
I know I had imposter syndrome starting to produce a podcast out of thin air way back when. It was just like, I don't know what we're doing, but we'll record it and see what happens.
Did you really? Because you faked it really well.
I knew, like, obviously I had a lot of experience with just production in general, but as far as actual podcasting, like, it was new, but I was a huge fan of podcasts, like probably started listening to podcasts back in 2011, actually. And so just listening to them for forever, I kind of like knew a little bit, but until you do it, you just really never know, so.
Well, and I do have to fess up because, I don't have to fess up because I think I said this to you when you were like, I would like to do a podcast. And I was like, there's too many. Nobody's going to listen to, I was a naysayer, which is not normally my style, but I have to say you were, okay, this is going to hurt. Hold on.
Wait, am I about to get a compliment? Let me get my calendar so I can write it down real quick.
Dear diary.
She finally complimented me.
Okay, I'm going to say something. It's going to hurt, but it's going to be like getting a shot. It'll be over in a second. You were right. And I was wrong.
What can I say?
It wasn't that bad. It's like a shot. Wasn't that bad?
Felt great for me. It's the first time in my life. Finally got a compliment.
Oh, I don't believe that for a second, but yeah. So I do appreciate that you were you saw what I couldn't and were just pretty pushy about it.
I took your car keys and I was like, unless you record this episode, you're not getting them back. So,
I know.
Yeah, well, it definitely has worked out so far. But so to flip things around just a little bit here, and talking about, how far you've come, but what is your most embarrassing moment as an SLP or most embarrassing story?
Oh gosh, I've got so many. So some of them stem from the fact that, I work with Spanish speaking families. I have for most of my career. And I have a couple of really embarrassing stories from language mishaps. And one in particular is I reversed the words for stubborn and dumb. And so I told this mom that her kid, and they're very close in Spanish. And I was saying to her, let's say Billy is the kid's name, not his name, but Billy is trying to say Billy is so stubborn, and because he was not wanting to do something we were doing. And so we were both, and I said it with like a smile on my face because he was like, oh, Billy's so stubborn. And what I said though, she didn't say anything to me, and she just kind of got this really weird look on her face. And I'm like, and just because what I do is I'm like, I need to say it again because obviously you got a weird look on your face. So I'm going to keep saying it.
Yeah.
So I was like, Billy is so stubborn. And so again, she didn't say anything. I'm at another appointment later that day, and the mom there in Spanish says the word for stubborn. And it's not the word I said. And all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, I called him dumb. And so, which is a really big insult in Spanish. Like, and so
it's an insult in English as well.
Well, it is, but you know how there's some things that are really like, culturally.
Yeah.
I called her that night. I said, I am so sorry. I did not, because so I basically with a big smile on my face said, Billy is so dumb. And I felt so, she goes, I knew you didn't know what you were saying. And I was like, well, why didn't you tell me? But again, you know, she's like, you don't correct a professional. And so I felt so those were both super embarrassing moments. We'll be right back to our interview. We just want to take a brief moment to shout out the company that makes this show possible, Med Travelers. If you are a therapist interested in traveling, visit medtravelers.com to explore the amazing benefits that Med Travelers has to offer. Featuring short and long-term contract opportunities at leading facilities across the country with higher earning potential, W-2 employee status, and a flexible schedule, Med Travelers is your advocate for career success. Visit medtravelers.com to begin your travel adventure today. And now back to the show.
So besides calling kids dumb, what would be your top tips for someone who is about to start their clinical fellowship and how to have a successful clinical fellowship?
Well, oh my gosh, I could write a book on this, but and watch for it. And maybe I will, and on my free time. So I would just say this is, I mean, really, at the end of the day, life is very short. And I seriously, this time will fly. Your life is about to take off, and it's going to go so fast where you're not even you're going to get 5 years in, 10 years in, 15 years in, and you're going to be like, how did this even happen? And I think that what happens is that people come out with, I'm supposed to know everything. And again, going back to that imposter syndrome, you're not supposed to know everything. And you're allowed to say, I don't know, and really mean it. And if anybody judges you for that, then boo and hiss to them, because you should be able to say that and not feel like you're getting any judgment. In fact, it should be rewarded and celebrated. So my advice would be, don't forget why you're doing what you're doing. Like really, and I know all this sounds really corny, or as you like to say, Jonathan, I'm the queen of corn. But it really, corn queen.
Yeah. Couldn't even get out my
I have a sash and a crown. I mean, I've got the whole getup for my corn queen costume. But it's like, enjoy the ride. Don't get so caught up in, well, when this happens, well, when I finish my clinical fellowship, well, when I get my first job, well, when I do this, well, when I get my dream job. No winning. It's now. It's now is when decide that you're going to be happy and find some joy with whatever it is you're doing, because you went into this profession for a reason. And every single profession has pros and cons. They all do. But you chose this. You went through all the hoops, and there's a lot of them, and you went through all of that to get to where you are. So enjoy it. I've seen too many people that halfway through their clinical fellowship are totally burned out, and don't be one of those people. Set boundaries. Do not always, definitely be selective on the hand raising. So don't think that you always have to be the one that's like, I'll do it. Yes, 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 yes. I'll work till late. I'll take work home on weekends. I'll volunteer for anything you want me to. I'll do this. Yes, yes, yes. Set boundaries, because again, this is one of my favorite Oprah quotes, you teach people how to treat you. So if people know, oh, they'll work all night, they'll kill themselves, they'll work all weekend, then that's the expectation. So set boundaries, have a work-life balance. You've gone through grad school. You've got your first job. You are not expected to be perfect. Whatever you're doing is making a difference. I promise you. I mean, I used to have a job in a public school where I had almost 90 kids on my caseload. And I remember one year I would have 6 to 7 kids per group in a group, and it would be all these different ages and different diagnoses. And I'm thinking, none of this is even effective. Like, what am I even doing? This is a waste of time. And this was an area in a really low SES area, and just, poverty and not great home lives. And I finally came to the realization that, you know what? I may be the only really positive interaction they're having with an adult that day. And so those are the kinds of things that I would hang my hat on. Is that's good. That's still leaving somebody better than you found them. So these are my tips. Do not feel like you have to know everything. You do not have to know everything. If you have imposter syndrome, again, that goes back to the not knowing everything. It's okay to say, I don't know. Let me learn. I'm new. I'm going to learn that and I'll get back to you. And then you learn it and then you know it. And then next time you don't have to say, I don't know. So don't have imposter syndrome. And then set boundaries. Still have your life. I always say work is a part of your life. It's not your life. So set boundaries, be selective with how often you say yes and what you're saying yes to, because it's a heck of a lot harder to undo when you've gotten yourself into a million things than to say, nope, I'm good. And, be really selective with your time. And also just realizing that the grass is not always greener. It may look like it is, and it's not always. There's going to be pros and cons for every single job, and that anything you're doing is helping. Whenever I would kind of start feeling burned out, I remember my husband saying one time, he's like, you are in a profession. He goes, some people work their whole lives and never get to see what positive effects they may have. You might build this trinket that you never know what actually comes of it. And you're a trinket builder, Jonathan, so you probably don't even know what's happening.
I'm really relating to this right now.
But you may never see, like, where did anybody benefit? What good came from this? And we are in such a unique position where every week you're going to get to see some fruits of your labor. And so I think that was a big wake up call for me when he said that. I'm like, you're right. And we get to see that all the time. So that's it. I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop myself.
Yeah, this will be a 2-part episode. So.
It's called a mini series.
Yeah. The Rants of Jennifer. So.
Please. That's another podcast.
Hey, that should be a good one. So maybe
no one would listen. But
yeah. Well, your mom listens to everything.
My mom is, she's my number one fan. I think she's our only subscriber.
I don't even know why we do this anymore.
For my mom.
Yeah.
Hi, Mom.
Obviously a big part of clinical fellowships is the supervisor. And one of the questions we got is, what is a good gift to give your CF supervisor?
Oh man, that's a good question. Okay. So I think, you can never go wrong with like a Starbucks gift card. I know that's
so generic.
I know, but really it's like, you cannot go wrong with that.
As long as they like coffee.
Well, exactly. Then you can't go wrong, but you can always get cake pops.
Very true.
Who doesn't love a cake pop? If you don't love a cake pop, we have nothing in common. No,
we don't have anything in common.
Well, we knew that.
Very true.
We already knew that. Now it's just one more thing we don't have in common. So I wonder too, I'm thinking depending on maybe what they do. So if they have maybe they work in a school, I wonder if something like a gift card or gift certificate to teachers pay teachers so that they can order some supplies of some kind. Or I mean, I know this also sounds so generic, but an Amazon gift card, you cannot go wrong with it. I know it doesn't feel personalized, but
Yeah.
I would say what you can do though is get something like maybe I've been going to Etsy a lot for like any sort of self-care kits and whatnot, like maybe some sort of self-care kit. And that's whether it's your supervisor is a male or female, they have stuff for everybody. So something personalized, but then something practical.
Yeah.
So maybe like an Amazon card or cash.
What are you, my uncle? There's your Seinfeld reference. How to get that.
I mean, no, not cash. Asha would
Here's
frown
some
on that.
leftover change I had in my car.
Some
Thanks
penny
for
rolls.
everything.
Do you even know what a penny roll is, Jonathan?
Yes, I've rolled change before.
Okay.
Not that
Back in
young.
my day, I just buy my own cassette tapes. Take
Hey,
those penny
I
rolls
made
into.
some mixtapes on cassette players, so I know all about it.
So yeah, I would say like maybe something small and personalized. Maybe even like I don't know, a mug. I'm not.
I think
good
we
at
should
this.
stop here. I think you had like self-care kit with like
Okay,
maybe something
okay.
like a gift card with that. I think
Can you
having
edit the
this-
mug piece
Yeah.
out? Just kidding.
Yeah, no mugs.
Don't get him
No,
a
a mug would maybe be a nice touch,
Yeah.
depending on the mug, you know. So.
Or if you're like a tea drinker, they have these like little tea kits or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, kind of whatever they are in, because you spend a lot of time with these people and get to know like, oh, they use lotion all the time. Oh, they drink coffee. Oh, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
I think we covered that one well.
You had me a mug.
Sure, I did. So, a big part of speech pathology these days is people that do traveling, and so doing like travel speech pathology. So, if someone is maybe an experienced SLP already, but they're just kind of at that point in life, they're looking for a change, what would your advice be to them if they're thinking about traveling?
I mean, I seriously wish that is like, I don't have very many regrets, but and I wouldn't even call it a regret, but I really wish that I would have done it because it would have suited me so well. And again, it goes back to that life is short and this whole notion that, well, and I don't think people think this way anymore, especially newer grads or even people who have been up for a while, but this thought of like, oh, well, I have to start with a company and I stay there forever. And it's like, no, absolutely not. I mean, I think that's pretty rare. See, that's it.
Proper use.
I'm not offending anyone. Pretty rare these days that, anybody would do that. So I think, especially with like if you did a school assignment. So I think that's what people sometimes get confused about is they think travel is only 13 weeks, but you can do a whole 9-month assignment. And I know if you have family and kids, then can be challenging. But the fact that it's 9 months and if you really love it, you can keep doing it. It's almost, and especially before your kids are in school and you've really planted roots, I think it's a great way to just see what it is you like, to get some good experience under your belt, and it's fascinating too that just depending on where you are in the United States, it's so completely different. You know, how schools and facilities and whatnot are run in the Pacific Northeast versus Florida versus Midwest. There's some similarities, but it's a great way to really just become a flexible, adaptable clinician. So I think this is how I feel about it is you have nothing to lose. Like it's one of those where you could even do 2 years, like where your kids are little, or even once they're older, they're saying like, hey, what do you think about going and living here for a while? And I know a lot of my friends with kids are actually on this wanting to do RVs and live in an RV with their family and travel around and work different places. And I think that's becoming more acceptable and more like, oh, it's not so crazy. Like, a few years back, I think if you said to somebody you're going to do that, say, what? But I think now it's like, oh, that's really exciting. But again, and if you don't have a family or in a place where maybe your kids are grown and they've just left and you're kind of figuring out what's next for you, I think that would be a great thing to say, you know what? Now it's kind of, I can find myself again and kind of go see what it is I like to do and explore. And almost like if you already have one big transition going in life, why not add to it and just kind of keep it
all the transitions.
I mean, go big or go home. It's like,
Yeah.
let's just, so I think it's really just comes down to remembering that at the end of the day, it's a blip, like this life. And you never know what saying yes and trying that, what doors that opens, because most of the things that I truly say stumbled into in my life weren't really like planned, but were more like, let's try that. And then it just turns into this really cool experience. So you have nothing to lose. If you go someplace, whether 13 weeks, 9 months, come back. I mean, you've only gained experience and seeing things in a different light.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great advice, I would say.
Yeah.
And obviously during COVID times, we've been doing a lot of teletherapy. So a question we got is, can I do teletherapy in the afternoon or evenings if I work out of school?
Yeah, and that's a really common question. It's a really good question. So basically, the only times it would really work, because the students you're seeing are in school as well. So the only times it would really work where, let's say you are on the East Coast and you finish school at 3:30, then you can see kids that are on the West Coast, because it's what, 3:30, 2:31, 12:30. 12:30? Is that right? Is it 12:30? 12, 1, 2, 3. Yes, I visually go through the time zones if you didn't notice what I was doing.
I could see you doing it.
I was like Eastern, Central, Mountain. Okay. So yes, that's where it could work if it was not a full-time position at the school and they needed some fill-in hours or part-time, then that's where I've seen it work, is when, or the flip side, if you're on the West Coast, then you can get up really, really early and start seeing kids for the morning on the East Coast. So that's the only other time I will say that we have had people do this, is if it's students that are homeschooled and they can do some evening hours, or some online schools, which again, there's some evening hours, but that's not going to be as common. I'd say the more common is if you're on one coast or working in a time zone that's different than yours, you could accommodate a few hours.
Okay. Awesome.
Are you interested in applying, Jonathan?
Asking for a friend. I don't have to be an actual speech pathologist.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All right. So to reminisce a little bit of our episode so far, we've obviously, this is 50, so we've had 49 previously, which is hard to believe. What was the topic you felt least prepared to discuss in an interview?
Again, in the beginning when I had more imposter syndrome, I would say it was probably the one we did with Dr. Stanford on the forensic SLP work, because that was just such a new topic that I hadn't really delved into at that times. And I think for me, it's harder for me to, if I don't know, like, what's the appropriate terminology? You wouldn't know it sometimes, but I really don't like to offend people.
Unless
it's Jonathan. And that's totally different. But anyway, but that's also, I could also take it. So, but I really try really hard not to. And I usually feel really terrible if I do. And so I was trying so hard to be careful, because I didn't want to use the wrong terminology and I didn't understand all of it then. But I will tell you that after that episode, And Jonathan, it has sparked a big interest in me. You're tired of hearing about it, but I really started doing a ton of research about it. So that's what I did is I used that like imposter syndrome feeling, went and did whatever I could to learn about the topic and to learn about what I didn't know. And then we had another podcast guest, Dr. Susan Roberts and Lockwood Roberts. And I felt really much more comfortable because I'd studied and learned a lot. And now, did I tell you that I am presenting at a conference?
Yeah.
With this organization. So it's like, I feel like not knowing led me to this because I forced myself to learn. So anyway, that is the episode that I felt like I didn't know as much as I wanted to, but it actually spurred me to go learn what I needed to.
Yeah. Yeah. It came full circle on it.
It did. Full circle moment.
So this next one, I'm a little nervous to ask you. I'm nervous what you're going to say. But
I am too.
Yeah. You never know what you're going to say.
I don't ever. Sometimes I just don't have any control over my.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
But if you had to describe your producer in 5 words, what would they be?
Okay, hold on.
Oh, dear.
I got to really be selective. So I would say, single words.
While you're thinking of that, my favorite introduction so far is still the International Man of Mystery.
You are. Okay, I would say funny because I don't think people see that from behind the microphone. So I'd say funny / witty is kind of where I would say. I would say, funny and witty. So you're like want to keep them positive. I would say determined. I would say, you're. I don't want to say because it's smart is not the word I'm looking for. Not saying you're not smart. I'm just saying it's an offshoot of that. Kind of what I said about that kid.
Smart, and the other end of the spectrum. Dumb,
stubborn.
You're stubborn. Air quotes.
No, I would say creative. I got to throw that out there.
Okay.
You're creative.
I'll take it.
Okay. Tech savvy. And then
much more than 5 words.
No. Okay. Well, what? Tech savvy. I can't do that. That's a hyphen in between.
It's hyphenated.
Okay.
I'll give you that.
And then one more. I would say, I don't want to say because you're not stubborn or hard headed, but sometimes I would say. What's the word for that?
You should have started with this, and then
I should have. I know.
I
absolutely thought that, but I don't think it's not a bad version of it. It's that you know what you want, you have a vision, and so you're
stop at nothing to get it.
Yes. So whatever that is, I want to say hard headed, but that's not right.
Move on for you.
Because I meant it in a nicer way than it sounded.
No, I get it. I say that's pretty accurate. But
yeah.
So, all right, what has been 1 or 2 of your favorite guest moments so far on the podcast?
Oh man, I have just had so much fun talking. I've learned so much from everybody that's come on. It's I would be hard pressed to think of one, but I will say that I think something that's kind of also been, speaking of full circle, is it's been really fun to have some of my colleagues from grad school on, because that is, these are people that have been, I always say we were in the trenches together. I feel like it's probably how people who've again, I'm not comparing myself to a soldier or have been in war, but just that where you're in a really stressful
You're a soldier, you're Oprah. Who are you next?
I definitely have some delusions of grandeur here, but we were like in a foxhole known as grad school together. And it was anyone who's been in, it's hard and there's stressful moments and nobody can really understand other than those who were there. And so I think that's been fun having like Alice and Iris and some of my friends that I went to grad school with and still are such an important part of my life that have been able to come on and do this as well. I'd say that's been really fun because otherwise I can't, I like so much about different things about so many of the guests that came on. It would be hard for me to pick one. So I'll say that's been, they're two of my favorite guests just because it's full circle.
Yeah.
And probably you, Jonathan, the ones that you've popped in because you are the international man of mystery. And so we don't know what happens behind. Usually you're, shielded.
Yeah. Usually I'm off screen.
I know.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's been always really fun when what is it called? You've broken the third wall or what do they say? It's like the Matrix.
That saying's before my time.
No, I literally think you ran your car into the wall and broke the third wall, right? I'm sorry. That was so bad.
I don't know where you're going with
I don't either. Yes,
it's
the
like
hamsters
watching a train wreck in slow motion.
the hamsters in my head are fighting again. But yeah, so I'd say it was fun to have you come on because wasn't your role and it wasn't what you were breaking the rules. And I'm always a fan of a rule breaker.
So.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, no, we just have our little bantering in the beginning and then it's, normal episode, but we'll be back to regular scheduled programming next time. So be back behind the scenes and
Thank
mystery.
Goodness. Good. You can't get you back there fast enough.
Some people say I'm a mystery wrapped in a riddle, but no. Another Seinfeld reference. I'm sorry.
You couldn't help it. Okay, you've met your quota for the month.
Yeah. All right. Well, to wrap up this episode, we have to know what is next. Where do you want to take this podcast? What are maybe some topics you want to cover that we haven't, or things you want to explore again that we maybe talked about a long time ago?
I think I'm going to let's take this podcast on the road.
Should
we do a road show?
If you said anything else, I would have been disappointed. So.
It's kind of like a sideshow. We could actually probably start at carnivals.
Probably. Only as an opener, that not a headliner.
You haven't been to a lot of carnivals. We would have our own booth next to the cotton candy or
the water gun with the plow.
Yes. And we certainly would get kicked out for abusing the water guns. I mean, but anyway, okay, so that would be my first choice. Let's take it on the road. I'd love to do like a college tour. Can we arrange that?
I'll ask your agent about it.
We can by that I mean we're just going to set up shop in the trunk of the car in a college parking lot.
Yeah, and just have like the little speaker with like the microphone.
Until we're asked to leave.
I'm sure it'll be swift.
So watch for that advertisement to come out. Okay, but other than that, the topics are, I think I always like to know what's new and trending in speech pathology. So I think talking to some of those that are really the people that are making those really great changes within this field and the innovators and some guests that we've had on before. I'd love to have them come back to know what's new in speech pathology, what things that we should be on the horizon for. I think I always love to is as we have technology as more a part of our worlds is what are people doing and how are they using technology to be able to do their job. And then I think too, just some more about, it's kind of some of that practical stuff like goal writing, keeping ourselves organized, helping us be, there's just not enough of us to go around. So what can we do to be the most effective and good use of our time as possible? And another one I'd like to talk about too, because this has been coming up a lot, is just how to have difficult conversations with parents, or if you don't agree with colleagues on a treatment plan or something, like what does that look like? And how do you have, because you're not always going to agree with everybody. I hate to tell you.
Experience right
I
here.
was going to say, I mean, Jonathan disagrees with 99.8% of what I say.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. And so I think just, some practical tips on that. And also I would like to dive deeper into when is it appropriate to discharge and what does that look like? Because I think sometimes people forget, even including us as professionals, because I've fallen into this too, that the goal is to help them get what they need, have the strategies. We're not going to fix everybody and then let them carry on with life, whether that be in school, if you're an outpatient clinic, whatever it is. At what point, like, what does that look like? So I'd love to have some experts on that can really help, because I think it feels scary to relinquish that sometimes. And if we have the tools for that, I think it would be easier.
Well, that is a great place to wrap up this episode. So thank you for being my guest today.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being my host. It was
See,
wonderful.
It was painless,
It was like that shot. It just hurt for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was great.
Well, cool. Well, 2 weeks from the release of this episode, we actually have Emily McNeil back on. So exciting stuff. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, definitely follow us on Instagram. A lot of fun stuff being posted there and highlights. And that's where actually people submitted questions for this episode. And also follow us on YouTube for the video version along with highlights. So, but yeah, until next time, see you all later.
Thanks. Bye. And that wraps up this episode. Thank you for tuning into SLP Full Disclosure. For more information about this episode, check out the show notes on our website at medtravelers.com/SLP Full Disclosure. And don't forget to leave us a review and subscribe so you never miss a guest. Are you interested in becoming a travel SLP? Visit medtravelers.com to learn more and explore the exciting opportunities we offer at top-level facilities across the country. Also, a special thanks to Jonathan Carey for producing this episode and Aiden Dykes for the music and editing. And as always, this episode was powered by Med Travelers. See you next time.